from my perspective, I believe that will be a more efficient, more effective transport system. Would be a big win if we could actually all move towards that. There are examples in some cities where that is working extremely well, but in the majority of cities still, there's a lot of disconnect going on between public transport and private transport systems. Mm-hmm. Sure, so sustainable finance is any financial decision action that integrates environmental, social or governance activities into a business or an investment decision for the betterment of the client and society at large. So from our perspective, how can sustainable finance support the climate agenda? If you look at the climate action agenda, according to the G20, $90 trillion is required over the next number of decades. And so capital markets need to be involved as solution providers in providing that capital in a meaningful way, which also will generate a return for those capital providers. No. All studies point to no, that's not the case. And we've seen a massive increase in the growth of the green bond market over the last number of years. Capital market participants are very happy to buy into those green bonds. They get the same return, and that's what the capital markets are looking for. This is not about philanthropy, this is not about corporate social responsibility, and hence the green bond market is really taken off because it's a market where you can go in as a capital market participant, buy into an issuance and get a decent return. No, I think what we're seeing is what COP21 or the Paris Agreement talks did do, very much from a capital markets perspective. It was a positive tipping point where the capital markets really came to the table and said, okay, what can we actually do in this agenda? What are we doing and how can we actually do better? And what can we do to facilitate the funds required to finance climate action? So no, even though, as you said, it may not be legally binding, X number of companies have signed up to it, majority of companies countries have signed up to it, and what you've also had is large number of capital providers are now working within the parameters of COP21, but in particular the UN Sustainable Development Goals as well. And what we're seeing is that more and more investment houses are now coming out with products that are linked to the UN SDGs. So climate bonds, green bonds, funds that are linked to SDGs, we're seeing an explosion in these types of products hitting the market, which is demonstrating a demand in the market as well. Sure. I think I wholeheartedly agree with you, and we've seen most recently children take to the streets and generate a huge amount of interest at this at a global level, which is quite important as they are the future, and we are the last generation to know what we're actually doing. So for this generation, it's quite important coming up behind us. So I think the point is well made. Yes, the public authorities, yes, citizens of cities and countries need to lead in this agenda, but from a sustainable finance perspective, at the end of the day, governments need to set out what are their objectives to decarbonise between now, 2030 and 2050. They need to be ratified, regulated, policy, whatever it may be, and the capital markets can then respond in that in terms of, well, how do we get the capital to flow to those projects? But it does start, as you say, from the ground up, and what we're seeing is a really big movement globally from citizens and the public authorities say we would like to live in this type of city, this type of environment. They're now getting translated into policies, and those policies are then being reacted to by entrepreneurs or large companies, and therefore capital is required on the far end. It does go back to return. So again, I'm stressing this is not about philanthropy, this is not about corporate social responsibility. There is a limited amount of capital flowing in the world, and that capital has to generate return to be invested in the next project. So it's not a decision about who gets the pick. Large companies that are bringing capital projects which green bonds can be spent against, or the proceeds of green bonds can be spent against, they themselves as companies are looking into what they need. And then obviously a lot of these green bonds are being independently validated by third-party companies, and what they're looking at is what is the impact going to be and measuring that impact. So there is, there's the green bond principles, there's a climate bonds initiative, there are bodies out there validating these green bonds and the issuance of them and how the money is going to be spent, and tracking to make sure that the money continues to be spent in the way that I said it was going to be spent.